Oui, je voudrais donner, affirmer un
So,
remerciement.
I would like to extend my warm thanks to Gallus Cadeno, who came from Switzerland to take part in today's seminar. And it's very interesting to have international experience brought in. And he also accepted to sponsor our symposium with 3,000 Swiss francs, if my memory serves me well. Besides speaking of shared energy, I would like to pay tribute to the first chairman of Énergie, or president of Énergie Partagée, Bernard Laponge, if I remember correctly. He was one of the leading pioneers of renewables. He was the former Director General of the FMI. That was the name at the time, François? So yes, a tribute to Bernard Laponge. Now, moving on to our next panel on regional territorial projects. Our coordinator or facilitator will be Joëlle Colosio. Please join me on stage. She's the Deputy Director of Regions at ADEME. We've worked together on several projects. She will be coordinating this, facilitating this panel. Could the panelists join us on stage? You will see that between citizen projects or regional projects, there are not many differences, and often they are closely intertwined, in fact. You have the floor. Thank you very much, Jean-Louis. Thank you to all of you. To highlight the work of ADEME, the Energy Transition Agency, throughout this seminar, I can say that this seminar is a great opportunity because this is the final day of the Conference of Parties. We don't know yet what the final text will look like. If we look at regional projects, these Conference of Parties are very much criticized, but they are important moments in time. You have the entire world meeting to discuss a very important topic for our planet. And when you find yourself in the midst of a conference of parties in a specific country, in the Emirates, with 100,000 people around you, and when you see how the elected representatives are very much involved in discussions, in the plenary sessions, but also on specific events, side events, you can see the clout and the importance for elected representatives of this work, and to lead and lead our regional directions at ADEME around companies, citizens, elected representatives. Their work is fundamental to fast-track energy transition. So I would like to pay tribute to all the elected representatives who are present in this room, and thank you for those who are part of the next ADEME. Thank you for trusting ADEME and the companies that work with us, and thank you for being part of that process. And you're there when we challenge you, so that projects have a greater, higher performance. A year ago, we only talked about energy conservancy, but now it's less the case. But at ADEME, it's very much, it stays an important subject. And to conclude on the Conference of Parties, it has highlighted to increase threefold the use of renewables, and there are other objectives that have been highlighted. And if it is not conclusive, let's hope that the following conferences will be more successful.
We'll try to stick to our time. Each panelist will have 6 or 7 minutes to express themselves. I will start with you, Alain LEBOEUF. You are the chairman of the local council of the Vendée department in the west of France. So let's try to see how you, as elected officials, implement these renewables projects. You know, as being at the chair of a local regional authority, what have you been doing, and what can you say to the people who are in the room in terms of how the elected officials brace this topic, and what you do about that? Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you, Jean-Louis. I don't know how I can start, but maybe I can also pick up on what was said during the roundtable just before us, because everybody showed that citizens have to be involved, people have to be involved, and the elected officials can only be respected if they are understood by citizens. And if I take the example of what we try to do in my department, every time, you know, there is a narrative when you want to start a project based on clean energy or renewable energy, you have to refer back to the past. You know, in Vendée we had the Eureka oil spill. You know, when you are the second department in France in terms of tourism activity, and you get up in the morning and all your beaches are full of oil, well, then it's you know, this leaves an imprint on the people. There is also the storms, and we know that the sea waters are going to rise, and so everybody understands that it's not just for other people to roll up their sleeves and get to work, it's also for us to do it. So you have to try to trigger the people's interest. So this is what we tried to do, and we really wanted to make sure that these projects were actually deeply rooted in the local territories, and this is something that you can do everywhere. You know, in France, we're lucky because we have the sun, we have the wind, especially when you're on the coast like we are. You know, the Vendée is located on the Atlantic coast between Nantes and La Rochelle, just to give you an idea of where we are. There's also the Vendée Globe, a race around the world. You know, basically what they do is that they sail around the world just using renewable energy, wind. And so every time you can build a narrative on that basis. So we're lucky because we have wind, we have sun, and we also have farming. We have farming land, and so we have to try to see how we can implement solutions. And also, as was said in the other panel discussion, if we want citizens to be involved, we have to see how they can be involved with and through their local authorities. You know, you talked about the energy syndicate, which brings together all the municipalities in the department, in the area. We understood that we could have a SEM, a Société d'économie mixte, which is actually 75% of shareholders who are the local authorities, the municipalities. It's also the department council, and there's also another grouping like ours who's involved, and then 10%, of course, has to be the banks, CDC, and the local banks, because, of course, that's where we get our money from. So the narrative here is that we manage to invest, and if we invest and then there are some dividends at the end of the day, the dividends will be paid out to the local authorities, and then the local authorities will be able to invest in renovation, refurbishing of buildings, of schools, of daycare centers, etc. So every time you have to tell a story to the people, but a true story, of course, that will create interest in the people. So this joint venture, if you wish, has now gone up to the next step, so that the territories themselves can invest. It shouldn't be only the local company. But we had this idea when, as you know, each of our municipalities had to work on climate and energy plans, master plans. And so the elected officials had to get together with citizens to say, okay, what are we going to do at our own scale? Saving economy, going sober on a certain number of things, etc. So, and then we see that people were starting to think about that. And we saw how the local authority with the citizens could also be able to invest. And now we have those Sociétés d'économie mixte, semi-public companies. We have a certain number of entities in the groupings of municipalities so that they actually can invest into a project, a PV project or a wind farm project or a methanization project. And today we are working on this a lot. And things are so much easier when you involve the people and when you try to explain things to them. For photovoltaics, for example, we tried to roll up our sleeves, especially when people told us that we were going to use to set photovoltaic panels on farming land. Well, we felt bad about this. We said, no, we're going to do something else. We're going to do this on already degraded land. And we tried to explain to all the mayors in their cities, don't you have brownfield, or the parking lot of the school, or, we have parking lots everywhere, degraded areas. So this semi-public company or the local branch of that same semi-public company will invest there, and you will be able to say to your citizens, okay, this parking lot is going to be covered with solar panels, PV panels, and your cars will be protected in the winter and will be in the shade in the summer. And this will produce power. So it was a little bit complicated. But today, the semi-public company and its branches produces the exact quantity of energy that all the municipalities produce. So, or consumes, rather. So we said, rather than having to sell this energy back, how can we sell it to our members? That is, the municipalities who are part of this semi-public company. And this is what we're going to do starting on the 1st of January with a special contract. The company is going to sell the power back to the local authorities. So we did that for electric power generation, and we also wanted to focus on mobility, because we are a very rural area, and you can understand that we don't have a metro, and all the public transportation, of course, have to be improved, but they won't solve all problems. 80% of our 700,000 inhabitants live in the countryside. They are scattered throughout the territory. The city center is 10%, in one city and 10% in another city. So we have this business model for companies whereby they are in the countryside. So we have to work on soft mobility. Of course, 35 million euros has been invested into bicycle lanes for daily commuting. We had a lot of tourist bike lanes, but now we have to focus on commuting and also on freight. So we wanted to show that if we are capable of producing this much energy, we can also use it for local mobility systems. It was true for electric vehicles. We started very early. Even before we thought that electric vehicles would be fit for purpose in the countryside. It was back in 2015 when we said that EVs were good in cities where you have pollution peaks. But we said, we don't have pollution, but if you want to have an electric vehicle, you can plug it at night when the wind turbines are running and the companies are not working, or you plug it between 12 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the companies are not working and the sun is shining. And so these electric vehicles will take energy from the grid at off-peak hours. And then we saw the penetration rate of EVs in our department, which was double what it was in other areas of France. And then we have companies, and of course, electricity is not what you need to talk to them about, but we also had a methanization plant. And so we thought, okay, methane for trucks or for school buses could be a solution. So this semi-public company was upgraded into a distribution company. And so now we have 7 service stations that actually sell biomethane exclusively. The first time we had methane and biomethane, now we don't want to give methane. It's only biomethane. School buses can use them, freight trucks can use them also, and the companies are now starting to get into that. And also, since we're smart, we wanted to take this one step further. We now have hydrogen, which is totally net zero. And so you have the Passage du Gouin, you know, where you can cross to go to Noirmoutier Island. We have a wind farm which has been amortized since 2018. So we can do whatever we want with this electricity, with this power that is generated. And we have a company called Life, in which we invested 2 million euros. And we are going to produce this green hydrogen. We have disconnected these wind turbines from the grid. We connect them directly on the electrolyzers to be sure that it's going to be green hydrogen that will be produced. And as chairman of the department, I ride my car. I do display this. I mean, I'm not very discreet. I want to be conspicuous. I say I'm working with local energy, local power. You know, I drive a car with a 100% hydrogen powered engine. So you said we have to change the mindsets, to change the culture. Yes, you're right. There needs to be acceptance, and there needs to be a cultural mind shift. And also, what we're doing, you know that we are going to have an offshore wind farm off the coast of Noirmoutier and Yeux, which are 2 beautiful islands. And so we have to say to the people living there, yes, we'll have to accept that. That's what I'm doing. But, you know, I want it to be clear that there has to be an economic fallout so that I can convince the people that it's good for them. And so the last thing that I got is that the crowns on the blades, you know, it was so much easier to go and buy them in China. But the European leader who makes those products happens to be located in Vendée, in my department. It's just a coincidence. But why would they go and buy their products in China? So I said to the chairman of Siemens France, I said to him, well, you know, over my dead body, you know, we are going to come out with our forks, and there will be a revolution if you don't buy those parts locally. And then recently, a few days ago, they decided that they would source those crowns, those caps, here in Vendée. And so when you want to go on the beach to pick up some clams or whatever, seashells, you know, I try to say to Siemens and to all those big multinational companies, you know, if the grandpa goes there to fish for shells and if he looks at the wind turbines, I think that the people who said, you know, I was involved, it's my project, you know, rather than saying it's not nice, it's polluting. We have to be proud of what we do. We have to be proud to be part of this transition because we cannot do without it. You know, I'm trying to put noble politics into this energy transition project, and I'm sure that it's something that we can do everywhere else in France. This is why I am the member of a committee working on how to involve local and regional authorities. And also, I am the chairman of the Energy Transition Working Group because I really want to spread the word. You see, we try to do things with our hearts and to believe in what we're doing. Thank you. I think you are the perfect example of what can be done, you know, and how you can change and move along. And I'm really glad to hear you talk about the role of elected officials, you know, in bringing together all the stakeholders in one given place. I think that you, as elected officials, you have a role to play. The problem with elected officials is that you can never stop them when they talk. So we don't want to be too long, right? Of course, it was a joke. But what you're saying is so valuable. It's a very precious example, and the chairman of ADEME this morning started putting together a network of elected officials also, and we really want to have as many people as possible part of this network in order to get the ball rolling, you know, because some local elected officials might still have qualms or questions, you know, your deputies, your local deputies, local officials, etc. So we really want to get them on board so that they won't make mistakes, and so that in their city councils and local councils they can be there and they can have the knowledge in order to do things right. And so I'm saying this again, it's a network that has just started with more than 450 local representatives, but the ministers really wanted to do that, and we want this thing to really grow and to work with people like you to demonstrate that success happens locally. And I'm going to stop there. Now, let's go to a much denser part of France, because, you know, this was a rural department, right, Vendée, with medium-sized cities. And we see how it's important to connect the cities with the rural areas, and we also have more densely populated areas, like Saint-Denis, for example, north of Paris. Laurent MONNET, who's the deputy mayor of Saint-Denis. I have a question for you, Laurent. How do you implement, maybe not solar energy, but renewable energy anyway, in a territory like yours? What have you been doing in Saint-Denis? Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me.
Pour faire peut-être la transition aussi avec la table ronde.
Maybe to pick up on what was said before.
Sur la vidéo tout à l'heure.
You saw me in the video that was shown.
J'ai créé il y a quelques années.
Because a few years ago, I created the citizen cooperative that was shown. The project there was in Épinay, but we work on the whole area, actually. I'm an elected official in Saint-Denis. I'm in charge of environmental transformation. And I'm also an elected official in Pleine Commune, in charge of nature in the city, circular economy, schools. And I'm also the chairman of the local heat network, which is called SMEREC. So, you know, this gives you the backdrop and a good representation of the challenges that I have to deal with on a daily basis.
De portefeuille, je le cite aussi parce que.
And of course, this creates a lot of opportunities because sometimes we have some conflicts of views. You know, sometimes on a rooftop, people want to put plants, or other people want to set up PV panels, etc. So, what do we do? Well, it's stating the obvious, of course, but I like to mention that it's not only about renewable energy, but it also has to be local. This is really important for us. We started our term of office by focusing on climate urgency. And then, of course, there were those crises that hit us, the energy crisis, the increase in energy price. And this was there to remind us of how important it is to work on local energy sources on our territories. As the chairman of the heat network, I already had in mind a lot of things,
Capacité de produire localement.
geothermal energy, for example. So we need to have the capacity to produce, to generate energy locally, and also we need to be in a position to actually protect our local inhabitants from the fluctuations of the market. You know, when you produce your energy locally, well, then you don't have to suffer from the increase in energy price.
Pour le gaz, quand on est
Same thing for gas when you look at biomethane or geothermal energy, etc. So
avancer là-dessus.
it's really important for us to work on that. Also, as I said, I was elected in 2020. Before being an elected official, I was in charge of this energy production cooperative. And also, I see that, you know, on a territory like mine, which is very dense, very urban, and very much to the north of the country, you know, so we don't have so much sun. Not so many opportunities to work on solar power. You know, the business models of all those solar projects are much easier to implement when you're in the south of the country. And but of course there are subsidies that can be used. And well, it's difficult in terms of business model, but it's difficult also for many other reasons. You know, we have the possibility to look at all the opportunities for PV panels. You now have the obligation to install panels on all parking lots, but actually when you look at all the surface areas, not many are actually eligible. So there are obstacles there. There are obstacles with the business model, as I said. For us, local authorities, you know, in Saint-Denis, we have a lot of projects going on already, so people are not necessarily available to work on that. And our projects, especially for rooftop panels, let's not talk about wind farms in our area. It's going to have to be mostly photovoltaics. But basically, you're looking at new build or massive refurbishing of buildings. Apart from that, it would be a little bit difficult to say, okay, this rooftop, I'm going to use it for panels and I'm going to start a project on that. You know, that's not really something we can do. So we're looking at big projects, including urban refurbishing. So that's the kind of things that we will target as a priority. But one of the key obstacles that we have, and that's probably because we are new in that area, but it's the competency, you know. And I would like to thank the citizens, because I know that in my local territory, in Plaine Commune, when it comes to photovoltaic building or construction of photovoltaic panels, it's the citizens who are actually the most motivated. And I'm saying this because when you're looking at new build, usually the developers at the local level, they don't have that kind of mindset. They don't have that kind of culture. So sometimes, because of the situation, we try to push them to install panels, but it so happens that the panels will disappear during the course of the project, and so at the end of the day, you won't get them. So just to tell you where we are, I'd like to tell you about the Olympic project, because, you know, we are an Olympic city, Saint-Denis, because there will be the Olympic village, and there will be also the swimming pool. And also, of course, it's thanks to these Olympic projects that next year we are going to be able to connect 2 megawatts of photovoltaic powers to the grid. So, and of course, without the Olympics, it would probably have been much more complicated to do. We're talking about pride. Well, of course, it's the Grand Paris that is actually is the project leader here. If you take the highway A1, you can see that this center, this is beautiful, with 5,000 square meters of PV panels. it will be almost self-sufficient in terms of energy, because there's also a heat recovery. So it's a building which will really be exemplary. And then you have that's the swimming pool, and then you have the Olympic Village. Local authorities, of course, have pushed for that, because we are the ones actually delivering the construction permits. But we really pushed in favor of PV panels on the rooftops. And you see that sometimes it's difficult to conduct that kind of project. We realize that, but there will be the equivalent of 1 megawatt that will be produced on the rooftops of the Olympic Village. And the conditions will be different. Sometimes it will be self-sufficient, self-consumed. Sometimes the electricity, the power will be injected back into the grid. There will also be some kind of a balancing with the electric vehicles parking lot. We will get the charging stations also for electric vehicles to supply energy for the building. So what is good is that this is really making the news. There will also be temporary, flexible PV panels on the roof of a warehouse and a barge on the river that will also produce power to supply the village during the games. So, some of this might seem a little bit like toys or gadgets, but it's essential for us because we are a big city, and major events like that, we have a lot of those. And every time, at the end of the day, you get a generator. So that's not something that we want to do in the future. We have to work on the quality of the energy that is produced for major events like that. It's really important for us. It's been a catalyst, really. It's something that we need those days. Because, as I said, as it has been said on several occasions before, we really need to gear up here in the production of renewable energy. So, all those projects will help us move forward and implement these solutions. Thank you very much, Laurent. Just one thing that I would like to add. The Olympic Village will be then turned into housings, right? Yes, I did not mention that, but of course it was built in the heritage mode. It was designed first to be housings in the future, but it will be used during the Olympics to put up athletes. There will also be offices and a certain number of activities. Yes, I just wanted to mention that because I think it's important that it's not just an Olympic Village that will disappear afterwards. Do we have maybe one or two questions for the first two speakers before we move on to the other two panelists? There is a question up there. Thank you. I'm from Châtillon-Soleil. I have a question for the two elected officials here. You talked about the local land use plan. You talked about the land use plan. My question is, in your territories, did you think of amending the land use plans? Because you said that on existing buildings it's sometimes difficult to install PV systems on the rooftops for a certain number of reasons. You know, basically, mostly the fact that people 40 years ago did not know that it was going to be possible at some times, but also for the buildings that will be built and that will be around for the next 50 years, it would be a pity if those new buildings could not be PV ready, you know? So have you thought of doing something in that respect? Yes, I said this, of course, on purpose. Our land use plan
encore un peu vague entre
includes a certain number of things which are a little bit vague, because you have to have what we call quote-unquote active rooftops. So that can be vegetalized or PV ready or whatever, but it was not very clear at the time. We are currently working on changing our land use plan. We're also working on a new local master plan for the territory, so it's a good opportunity for us to see how far we can go in the regulations, but of course I agree with you. Today, I don't understand how it is possible to design buildings without thinking about that. We have talks about PV or whatever, but it's impossible to design a building today without imagining that it is going to have to generate power at some point. We are building 2 geothermal plants, and heat is also very important for self-consumption, because we have a lot of heat pumps to take the temperatures up or down, especially when you want to generate cold, which is going to be important for the future. So yes, we need to get into that state of mind. You should not be able to build something without having in mind the fact that it will have to produce energy at some point. Thank you very much. Please do not touch the microphones, because then it's complicated for the recording. So please don't take the microphones in your hands. It was just a technical constraint here.
Oui. Is there another question? Yes. 2, but quick ones, please.
Non? Les organisateurs, vous allez me taper?
No. Is it all right, time-wise?
Oui.
Oui, bonjour, Joëlle. Donc j'étais
Yes.
un ancien élu.
I was a former elected officer in energy solutions. What strikes me is
Au niveau des territoires,
in the territories, the lack of continuum in these projects. At a time, there's the end of a tenure,
d'arriver à porter les projets au-delà.
and we have to pursue these projects beyond political life. It's a very complex issue,
Ce qu'a fait
and this is what one politician does, and another one undoes it. We'll take the second question at the same time. Maybe it's the same one.
Le micro arrive.
The microphone is on its way. The person here at the back.
Oui, merci. Oui, ma question s'adresse à Monsieur le Président de département.
This is addressed to the president of the department. Earlier on, you talked about agrivoltaism and all that you're doing. What about the discussion with the agricultural farming world? They would like to use this photovoltaic manna, and have agrivoltaic projects. And how is this done? Because the product comes from the pockets of a private person or from the community. So how is this done?
C'était la mauvaise question.
That was the wrong question to ask.
Alors 30 secondes alors.
30 seconds, that's all you have.
Oui. D'abord pour
Well, as for the previous question on continuity
de notre histoire,
in our history,
où il y a changement d'élus.
when there's a change in politicians, there could be some projects that are stopped. But in the field of energy transition, pressure is such that I don't see who would be the elected officers who will stop projects
Vocation de transition.
that are real transition projects. So if I look at other departments, the first wind projects, it was in 2003.
Et puis depuis, on
The syndicate set it up, and then we continued writing this story. When we can share with our citizens, maybe this does not really answer your question. I'm saying it's a bad question because actually, personally, I think it is flabbergasting to see that we're using farming land for this.
en fait, aujourd'hui,
So therefore, today, I'm at war with the farmers.
je ne sais pas qui gagnera.
I do not know who will win,
Mais
But I'm saying we have so many possibilities of finding land. We don't have to use farmland. But maybe this isn't shared by all. I'm not going to monopolize this discussion. The manager here, our mixed economy company, when we try to question all the citizens, right, all the elected officers, right after the first round, we had 40 mega projects, parking areas that are not farmland anymore. And with our agricultural chamber, we tried to list all the land that is not going to be used anymore for farming. And I'm thinking about the former landfills, the former quarries. We agreed on that. And there are a few farmers who can still defend what you're saying, but I'm not part of those. So yeah, there are discussions between us and farmers, but today I would represent a minority, because when there are texts, national texts coming out, well, I'm the one who's in trouble. Thank you. Would anybody else like to add something on the continuity of the action?
D'accord.
Oui, bonjour, Jean-Louis.
Hello, Jean-Louis Lequeux. I really admire all the examples you're giving. But to cut corners on this topic, well, how did we go from a positive energy building to positive communication? Because today we hear about the COP28, we hear about all that is going wrong, all that is happening with the OPEC. You're mentioning great examples. I'm moving to Vendée, and I'm glad to hear about what's happening, and I deeply regret to hear it when I'm in Malakoff and not when I'm in Vendée. So therefore, it is really a pity to have so many good examples, to have so much progress. We've seen what all has happened in 50 years, all the efforts made, and we are not deciding to have a positive environmental communication. Because today when we talk about the environment, it is associated to political movements, and it's not associated to a citizen attitude. And I think that we should have an ad that goes in the right direction. You know, we do a lot of adverts that go in the right direction, but sometimes it's complicated. Like this one today. And thank you for your question. I think that there is a real will from the government. They want to progress. They want this positive environment. ADEME steers a network which is called Piloté pour un réseau, where a lot of elected officers are engaged in this. And in this network, there are annual days that are open to all, and we highlight the excellency of the projects carried out by these communities. And they also communicate a lot during the different trade shows, etc. But of course, we have to keep doing better. And we can only wish that this day will be renewed. I'd like to give the floor to Emmanuelle, who's co-founder of Renaissance Écologique Association. How can your tool help communities answer certain expectations? And how could you make us want to, all the communities represented here, what's your method? So hello, and thank you for your invitation. I'm very happy to be here. Normally, I have slides, as Daniel said, and I do not know if they will be screened.
Parce que quand même, non, je dirais pas. J'ai ma clé, mais je ne sais pas.
I have my key. I have the stick, because what I'm going to say is very visual, and I would like to show it to you to talk about this tool. and about Renaissance écologique.
Un fabuleux dessin
We
qui, justement, je
need to see this beautiful drawing
qui permet en fait de voir les choses.
so that we can see things in a more positive way.
On est tous capables.
So we're all capable of saying that another world is possible, but to experience it is totally different. And this is what Renaissance écologique is proposing, is to imagine ourselves in a landscape that has succeeded in its green transition. And so this drawing, you see the city and the country, you see how energy is produced, how energy is used. And we see the effects on humanity, on the regeneration of life, because all this is related. So, therefore, I also wanted to say, well,
Notre dessin,
our drawing, this fresco on Renaissance écologique, this is the allegory of the effects of a good government on the life in the country, which is a fresco painted by Ambrosio Lorenzetti for the city of Siena. It's a contemporary adaptation made by Julien Dossier, who is an expert in zero carbon, and for his needs to teach at the HEC school, he needed a visual representation to allow players over a territory to imagine what it would look like. So create your own story, create a collective imaginary, and we use this fresco as a co-design tool. We have this ability to unite different people over a territory. So here we talked a lot about this need to federate players over a territory, to make people proud of all the projects carried out on their territory. And it is by asking all these stakeholders that we will be able to manage common projects and have a common imaginary. So this fresco is a co-design tool so that we can create this collective imaginary world, and it will be used to implement this roadmap, because Renaissance écologique, actually, you have time frames with design workshops to teach, and we will use 3 time horizons from 0 to later on to design all these projects.
J'ai une petite clé.
So I have a flash, a memory stick. If you weren't here, so I couldn't give it to you. So you're going to see the Renaissance écologique drawing. That's going to be great.
Et c'est vrai qu'on expliquait en fait
And so
qu'on a besoin de fédérer.
We were explaining that we needed to unite people around these projects. We need them to understand the culture. We need them to be made aware.
On a besoin de donner de la joie.
We need to provide joy. And here you see the Renaissance écologique. So there is a prospective and positive idea of the future, and this is a co-design tool. So this fresco is adapted from the good effects of politics on the life in the cities and in the country. It goes back to 1338, and the city of Siena is governed by 9 citizens, and they would rotate every 9.5 months. And so they had a very modern form of governance. And they need to protect themselves from the surrounding threats, because around them there are a lot of lords coming to the cities, and the citizens need to talk. These lords need to talk to their people and tell them, be careful about these new lords. They want to take over the power. So the city of Siena kept prospering, and this governance continued. I would like to suggest you to look at the documentaries that exist on this fresco. It's part of a triptych which still exists today at the Palazzo Pubblico in the city of Siena. When you enter into the square room, you face the proper governance. In the middle, you have common good, surrounded by all the virtues you can imagine in governance and a city. So here on the right, you have the effects of a good governance on the city and the country. So here, this is the systemic approach of this Renaissance écologique, because this society can exist only because it is based on 24 projects that are all related to each other, and which makes this society a robust society. And it's thanks to this diagram that for each action, we'll be able to search for the impact of these actions on the projects, on the surrounding projects. We'll be able to have a maximum number of stakeholders get out from the threaded areas, and we have to make these allegories speak. We'll have to see who are all the different players in the territory, unite them and federate them around this common project. So what is wonderful is that our association, we said that there were a lot of stakeholders on the territory, and the associations have this role maybe to facilitate exchanges and organize moments of common construction. And in our association, we have elected officers, citizens, researchers, teachers, companies, and they all wanted to go through Renaissance Écologique to build something on their territory. And I forgot to mention it, but our energy scenario is mostly based on renewable energies. And in this fresco, we are going to talk a lot about sobriety, with all the change in the consumer behaviors. We're going to talk about energy efficiency too. I would like to add an territorialization of renewable energies. So there are a lot of territories that are using this fresco to go from the drawing to reality. And our association is there to put forth virtuous initiatives that exist on territories, because we don't need to reinvent the wheel each and every time. Group, énergie partagée, all that we've talked about, what's happening in the Vendée region, in all our territories. We need to have these positive stories. We need to make people meet other people, and we need to highlight things which is already done well. We need to highlight what is not done that well also, and say, well, we have to do things differently. So explain that since 2019, our association is disseminating this fresco, and territories are grasping this for their transformation. Thank you. Thank you very much. So you have the map on the right-hand side, all the places where you're working, where our members. It's our members because, of course, we do organize training, etc., but it's our members. We equip them so that we can do something over their territories, because they know their territories well and the problems in their territories. Thank you very much. So you support the territories engaged in this transition. You dispose of this tool to these engaged territories. We have a very nice partnership with ADEME. So the Climate and Resilience Law plans to set up zones to accelerate the installation of renewable energy. This is being built by the various cities. Jacques Payas, you are deputy mayor of Saint-Denis? No, sorry. That's a mistake. mayor of St-Georges-sur Arnon. I was thinking 2 mayors from Saint-Denis. Sorry. So mayor of St-Georges-sur Arnon corrects the speaker. And you spoke at the ADEME on these topics. So in a territory such as yours, by basing yourself on the state and what the ADEME is proposing to build these zones through these tools, Salabasserma, and what is important is territorial engineering that is missing at all levels. So how did you overcome this issue? And can you tell us what you're doing on your territory? Can I use my PowerPoints, please?
J'ai que 8 minutes, c'est ça.
Allez-y.
Pour exposer 20 ans de...
Ah, ça va prendre du temps alors.
Non, je vais essayer, je parle vite, j'ai un débit assez...
Allez-y.
Moins important que la Garonne, mais...
Vous avez dit que c'était difficile avec les élus.
Voilà, le temps qu'ils mettent, donc je m'appelle Jacques.
So my name is Jacques PALLAS. Good afternoon, first of all. So I'm always very happy to attend such meetings because I also need to get more culture. And it's complicated, it's difficult, because when you're the mayor of a small rural village with 317 people, with wind farms, and when you have projects on your territory, people come and say, I have a wind farm project on your territory. Well, you wonder what's happening to you. You wonder. You don't have the same experience. It's really a big surprise for us. And you're going to see. And that's how it happened. And what I'm going to present, I don't have the memory stick.
Je sais pourquoi elle n'y est pas, c'est en PDF. Je comprends.
Pardon, aux zones d'accélération. Parce qu'on nous demande de faire des zones d'accélération, mais c'est pas simple. Hein. Surtout quand vous avez une opposition.
And it is not simple to do that, especially when you have people opposed to the project.
Et puis je suis réélu depuis...
And I've been re-elected since 1996. That's to answer your question. We didn't have to face that, but there are municipalities where the mayor was not re-elected because of this kind of thing. It can happen, and I'm afraid for 2026. Although I am confident, but we never know. So, very quickly now. So when I had to face this, I tried to hang on. I was part of this association, Amorce. I'm at Énergie Partagée. I call for help, in other words. When you live in the country, the Centre Val de Loire region, remember in 2005 there were only 380 megawatts of wind power, and there was no feedback. So I tried to find out more. I'm trying to go fast. So how did I begin? Why a wind farm? We did like kids. We typed and we came up with the European programs, 20% energy saving, reducing GHGs and renewable energies. And my whole strategy since January 2005 was based on this. You know this by heart, these 3 elements. The COP, I took part in it, the cost of energy, you said it this morning, and geopolitics. But today, I'm a small rural mayor, and the news is showing me that I'm right, and this helps in my learning process. So we had 4 years, 8 months of consultations. Everybody's asking me, Mr. Mayor, how did you do it for 4 months and 8 months? And here you have the description. We took our sticks and we went door to door. We explained the projects every 3 months. We went to Boin, visit the wind farms, etc. And if you don't have the mayor and the owner of the project, there's no point. If the project owner, owners first sees the farms to sign conventions without going through the municipal administration, he has it all wrong. I'm just telling you what I feel. That's my experience. So the project, the mayor, the municipal council. So now I have some experience. January 2005 until October 2009. That was the first wind farm, because we explained everything, but we had no experience in wind. I explained about the wind, and in the room, people would ask me questions, and I would answer as best as I could. And now I'm comfortable. As you can see, we have connected wind farms, and you're going to see what I'm going to tell you. It's important what all I'm saying, because when we don't have any, apart TV and some experience is difficult. So 19 turbines, all of a sudden. Well, all that is very fine, but the tax earnings, when you are in a rural area, you have no help from the state. And we have to share the landscape and share the earnings. And it's really worth it. So there was an extension because there wasn't enough. People wanted more, so we added 9 more. Yeah, I'm going a bit fast, but yes, go ahead. Next slide. So also say this when I organize meetings with my population. These turbines, do they help in terms of climate? Does it help in terms of greenhouse gases? We have to answer that, the first 3 priorities. And this is what I answer. 19 turbines, 46 megawatt, 14,000 homes connected, and 210 kilograms of radioactive waste. So afterwards, what do we do with this money? Because that's also the whole point. Learning, acceptance. This is what we did. There was the George V Cultural Center, low consumption building. One day you'll come. They collect water from rainwater and hot water from thermal heating. So we did that, and people used all that at home also. We saved in public lighting. There were 19 energy audits among individuals. With the money from these wind farms, we could hire 2 people, 50% for employment, 50% for the functioning. The maintenance center, I'm going a bit fast, but it's a pity. But we talked about employment. Yes, employment. We really fought to have the maintenance center of this wind farm. And today I have 24 technicians that maintain the 140 machines. Then we had photovoltaic installations in our buildings. Since I'm the president, we had the water directive on water, Natura 2000, etc., etc. So we're talking about the population, but the people interested, they saw that we had done something. I'm going a bit fast, and it's a pity. It's a pity. I hope we don't have to catch any flights. And then we checked our accounts when the project bearer would come and say, well, we are not stupid, we check. And we saw that we could earn money. The project owner, not just nothing. And in 2007, we had the gumption to have a mixed energy society. And we bought 5 turbines. And when I organized a meeting, the sub-prefect said that I was crazy, because we really had to fight with this. So we bought 5 turbines. The specificity of the CEMER, everybody knows that. 51%, it's for the communities. The tax was happy, and the college A and B, you have the public and private shareholders, the banks, and shared energy. We associated the population. We did all that. And I explained that to the elected members, well, we don't have to anymore, they know all that. So 15 million euros of investment, they would say, well, where can we find this money? So I would tell them, sit down, I will explain. It's not complicated. Out of 1535, 25% from the committees and 80% from borrowings. And we didn't spend 15.35, but 1.6. And then people start breathing. We need to explain all that, because all that I'm telling you, we aren't taught all that. We have to manage on our own. So you have an example here. Is it profitable? Because when there's no wind, the turbines don't run. So just see, 2020 was a good year. There was a lot of wind, but there's always wind. But just look at the result, 636,815 euros. So calculate the return on investment, that is 30%. Tell me, which is the public investment that is that profitable? Tell me, I'm listening. When you say sharing the landscape value, here you have an example. I'm going fast, of course. The corporate taxes to pay the schools, roads, etc. Look what we've cashed in. 3,100,000. I'm taking a breath. We are at 4 million euros that we have saved. But we have projects, you know. Next slide. So here, what we did, I'm going fast once again, for the elected officers, is it profitable? I'll give you an example, 20% for the committee, 50% for the department. So here I'm recapping. Next, we have, this is the last slide? No, you're going to see. We still have more projects of wind farms, and we're in the 21st century. Now we're going into hydrogen. We'll have 2 in St-Georges, and we'll have alkalizers. So we're going ahead. And I'll end on our federation. And this is going to help you. So I have my zones of acceleration. I started from the left. What do I consume on my territory? What do I produce? What do I consume and what do I produce? Because that's the whole point. Sobriety, you have to reach 42% of renewable energy considering your consumption, right? Look in my community. So the wind farm I have, I'm at 2,241. So we continued, and I'm going to tell you why I did this. So the energy, the one in the center, this is where we stand today. The power, the number of turbines, photovoltaic, and on the right, it's our zone of acceleration. So we have 23 turbines, but it isn't enough. We've consulted the public, and we're proposing 14 more turbines, production, etc., the photovoltaic. We're proposing autonomy in certain zones. So I have to submitted this to the prefect, and we'll see. In a small rural village, per residential sector, this is where I've asked them whether in the future, this year and next year, I want people to save power, save energy, save electricity and water. And I think it is possible. Our village can become independent. And the last slide, because you hear all kinds of things on TV, and here you're lucky to have a mayor who has the experience, and he's put down everything in writing. So you have the demo. The 3 objectives are reached, the greenhouse gases, the tax earnings, with the different number of turbines. You have everything, and there's nothing better. Thank you.
Vous avez été partout. En fait, le plus important, c'est de
the most important is to raise our interest, and I think you all did that. Thank you. I really wanted to thank you because what you're doing makes us want to move forward. It also shows that it's happening and that you have plenty of energy, renewable energy. And you've said how you need to involve all the stakeholders, how you have to explain, how you need to set priorities, how you need to continue this learning process, acquiring new skills, upskilling, and this issue of landscapes. And at ADEME, we are working with the National School of Landscapes. I was talking to the director recently, and she was saying that when we had the water towers, everyone was complaining, but today they are part of the landscape, like rail tracks or even wind turbines. But obviously this takes time for the buy-in, and for that you need tools to help consultation and the acceptability of projects. So thank you so much. This is about science, research. We started with science and research this morning, and this afternoon we focus on what you're doing, and I think this link is really crucial. Thank you.